Hello, everyone. This is Mike Mulrooney
And Kelly Duckworth.
with this episode of Shirley Talk. And today we have a special guest with us today, Mr. Quiton Higgins. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
So, this is going to be a good conversation because Kelly wasn't born back when the collision happened. And for those of you that don't know Quentin was on the bus in Carrollton, Kentucky in 1988 during the Carrollton Bus Crash. I guess is that what it's still called?
Yeah, the Carrollton Bus Crash.
Yeah, I didn't know if they had come up with a different name. I know, back in the 80s, and I haven't been that place in a long time, the Kings Island, everybody sees that sign when they roll through there, and it just, have you been back many times or often?
I started going back about 15 years ago.
Did you?
We try to go back about once a year now.
Okay. So for those of you that aren't familiar with the Carrollton Bus Crash, I'll just kind of let you talk about it and lay out the scene if that's okay. So you as a church group, a bunch of kids were on a bus heading to Kings Island.
Yes, sir. We were a church group from Radcliffe, Kentucky. Like you said, I was 15 years old. We were heading to Kings Island. I actually did not belong to the church. My best friend actually went a week before and come back to our little trailer park and invited our little clique. So we went to the church the following week and loaded the bus full of 67 people. Went to Kings Island, had a ball. It was actually my first time going to Kings Island. So I always say the best day of my life turned to the worst day of my life.
Yeah.
We headed up there, spent all day, loaded our bus back around about 9:30 at about 10:55 at night on Interstate 71. Drunk driver, Larry Mahoney, driving the wrong side of the interstate, hit our bus head on and it caught on fire.
Wow, that's incredible.
Killing 27 and 40 of us got off.
So 40 of you got off. So were you sitting in the back of the bus or the front of the bus? Or
I was actually sitting in the middle, 6 seats back. I'm actually one of the last, close to the last ones to get off.
So you take a bus around. After all this happened, it took you several years. How long ago did you start doing what you're doing? So you actually have a school bus with pictures of all the kids on the seats where they were sitting, I believe. Is that correct?
That's correct. Back in 2014, I got put on my heart to buy my own personal bus. And I intended for it to sit still, but I took it and parked it, and then we had a young lady in our town get killed by a drunk driver, and her brother actually got killed right after her coming from her funeral. And by crazy fate, her uncle is a bus driver. I drive a school bus for a living, which is crazy in itself, too. So,
That's what you do for a living now?
Yeah, I drive a school bus in Hardin County. I've been driving 11 years, so I think God just kind of walked me through this, being who I am today. But I ended up taking the bus to this memorial service, and WDRB 41 took a picture of my bus and put it on the news. And from that point on, I started speaking all over Kentucky. But this bus is identical to what we were on in 1988. It's got pictures of the kids on the seats where they were sitting at. And it's an old 80s bus. I mean, it takes you right back to that time. It's a pretty powerful statement.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I met you at my cousin's. She has an event every year, and you had that bus there, and I just listened to your story, and you said you're a bus driver. Did it take you a while to think about ever getting on a bus again?
It's crazy. It took me 10 years after our crash to even get on a bus. So how I became a bus driver, it's crazy.
When did you become a bus driver?
2010.
Wow.
I didn't plan on it. I mean, I lost a really good job on the military base, and I was out of work for a year. And at that time, I was a youth leader, and one of my friends at church was like, "You're good with teenagers. Why don't you go drive a school bus for Hardin County?" I said, "You're crazy." So sat at home. I ended up going to the CDL classes because I like fooling with big motors and stuff. And my mindset God blocked my mindset. So I passed my CDL, and I actually didn't intend on taking the job. Back in them days, people encouraged you to get your CDL and go drive for FedEx. Kind of cheat the system.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure they pay better.
They do. So I ended up actually getting a call from our safety coordinator that knew who I was. And at this time, no one knew who I was. I didn't talk about the crash. And she said, "Just come in and talk to me." And I went in and talked to her, and she said, "You're going to be a good driver. Just give it a try." So I started driving, and I joke a lot. We all have a touch of PTSD because of what we went through, but I'll joke. I got PTSD. Who's going to put me on a bus?
Yeah.
So, excuse me, ended up driving actually, and about a year into it, I had kind of freaked out on the bus a little bit.
I bet.
I took a high school team to a football team, and praise God, they actually stopped to eat in Bardstown, and I called one of my friends to come get the bus, and she said, "Nope, there's a reason you started driving." So she talked me back on the bus. I got
Talk about tough love.
Yeah, I want to punch her every time I see her. She knows it. But I got back on the bus, and here I am today.
So you talk about when you go to these places exactly what happened. So and again, I asked you before. I don't want to talk about anything that might bring up something bad memories. Obviously, I mean I'm sure they're scarred in your mind, but when the truck hit, did the thing immediately go up on fire, or did it just catch in the front? What happened?
No, on impact we were fine. That's the way I explain. I also teach bus safety, so I explain it this way. You're fine on a bus. We all got up. We were in the aisle. You didn't see the fire. You didn't smell anything. It took like 15 to 20 seconds. You felt the heat, and then you looked to the front, and you saw the flames come up. So the panic set in. And those old buses only 2 exits, front and back. So imagine 67 people. You see the fire and the flames. They take off trying to go to the back. So it happened pretty quickly, but just the sheer panic of it. Everyone took off, tried to get to the back. But in initial impact, we were fine.
Wow. So it started in the front up around the engine compartment. Back then, those buses, the gas tanks were in different spots. We were kind of talking about that a little bit. Was the gas tank towards the front, and that's the reason why it caught on fire?
Yes, the tank is on the right side of the front by the door. But those buses were supposed to have a cage around the tank, which actually was optional in those days when they made that bus. This bus did not have a cage on it. So a part of the leaf spring suspension shot and put a hole in the tank. And that's what ignited it.
Wow. I'd never heard that story. Was it taken off for some reason, or was it going down the assembly line and they just didn't put a cage around that one for some reason?
No, when they made them, it was like 3 years after, I think, it was optional to put them on. So people that ordered the bus, or they either could put it on or they didn't have to. So it was just an optional feature that didn't get put on.
Wow, that's incredible. So you're in the middle of the bus, and this thing is immediately, 15 seconds or so, you said it starts getting smoke and engulfed in flames. And I guess I would like to think everybody was heading to the back at that point. But, sometimes you get so rattled, you don't think clearly. And I'm sure everybody was like, what in the world just happened? After 15 or 20 seconds, were they trying to get and escort everybody to the back, I assume?
Well, once you felt the heat, it was the fight or flight scenario.
Yeah.
So you had some trying to get to the front. There was no order at all.
Panic.
It was just pure panic. You had a few trying to get to the front, and then it became people fighting over the seats. I actually stood up. Now you couldn't go anywhere, so I passed out from starting to smell the smoke. And I passed out, laid on the floor. Doctors say I had second, third degree burns on my hands and arms, and I covered my face. That's why I had no burns on my face. I don't know how long I was out. Somehow, it's true. They say you have a flash of your family when you feel like you're going to die. At 15, yeah. I knew I was going to die. I just knew I was going to die. I started thinking of my mom, my dad, my 2 sisters, and I kind of blacked out. Next thing I knew, I was up at the back door. I don't remember my time from the floor to the back. My first memory, and I'm not trying to be gory about, like I said, sharing the details of being vulnerable about our story. I seen dead bodies at the back. And I stuck my arm through them, and a truck driver pulled me off.
Wow. So you physically walked to the back somehow, and they helped you get off the back of the bus. Man, I just can't even picture that scene. Back then, there was no internet.
Yeah, right.
There was no 24-hour news. And I think most of the people just, I don't know how it got around. I don't know if it was around national news or what, but I know it was a talk of the town all over Kentucky because of this.
Yeah.
And the guy had been drinking. Do you remember? It was a small truck, I think is what it was, wasn't it?
It was an 89 Toyota pickup, a little small one.
Yeah, I just remember it visually.
But didn't he drive like miles?
Yes.
Like every time I passed that, we always timed how long he actually drove.
Yeah,
on the
it
wrong
is crazy.
side.
He actually drove about 2.4 miles.
Yeah.
But he passed 14 vehicles and 2 semis.
Yeah.
Missed all of that and hit us.
Wow. No, I didn't know that. I knew he drove a little while, but I didn't know he passed other cars.
Yes.
At some point, I guess he was just so trash drunk, he just didn't, it didn't register that he was going down the wrong way.
And it bring up a good point. If you see a school bus that has the strobe light on top, the reason that's up there is because if someone's driving the wrong side of the road or whatever, drunk or intoxicated or whatever, they're hoping that strobe light flashing will pop you into your right mindset to say, hey, there's something coming.
Really?
So,
Wow.
yeah.
Well, it's amazing the changes on stuff like that, because you said they're actually putting the gas tanks in different spots in buses now too, aren't they?
Yes, you got gas tanks in the rear and they're still in the front, but buses are not gas anymore, they're diesel.
Yeah.
So there's less, like I said, every aspect of a school bus has been changed because of our crash.
Well, unfortunate things that happen sometimes turn into things that are positive for the community. So
What was the age group? Like, were you one of the older kids or?
The two youngest were 10, I was 15, the oldest was 19.
Okay.
wow.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I just, have you ever met Mr. Mahoney, Larry Mahoney?
No, I actually have gone to his hometown and spoke twice and at the high school, and I knew the first time I went there, he lives 15 minutes away from the school. He's never spoke to anybody.
Yeah. I've read several things about him, and, you know, however you want to handle it, it sounds like he really has had a hard time with guilt over what happened. You know, we all make mistakes, but I just don't know. That's a tough one.
It is. I'm known. I think a lot of people reach out to me to speak because I speak about forgiveness. I do forgive them. The way I say it is this way: is one, part of my story is I grew up. My father's an alcoholic and drug addict, and he's got 28 years of sobriety now. But he was in the mix of his struggle. He didn't stop till I was 19. My dad's not a bad guy.
Right.
So always, do you think Larry Mahoney got up and said, I'm going to kill 27 people? He made a dumb, crazy choice like a lot of us do. You know, it could have been anybody. You know, did I forgive him immediately? No, it took me a while, but I mean, I do. But he has to get up and live with that every single day.
You're right. A horrible tragedy. Like you said, he didn't get up like a true killer and decide, I'm going to go shoot somebody in the head today. He made a bad choice, and it caused a lot of lives.
Yeah, my prayer is I wish he would come out and speak and share his story, because he could change lives.
Yeah.
You know, there's a drinking is one is common, but how many people get behind the wheel?
Well, you know what? Back in the 80s, drinking and driving wasn't really thought about much, to be honest. It wasn't a huge campaign like they have now about drinking and driving or wearing your seatbelts. You know, I remember people driving down the road, cigarette in hand, beer in hand, and nobody thought twice about it. Right or wrong, that's just the way it was.
Right.
And we've really had an education over the past many, many years on the horrible, or the things that could happen because of that. But yeah, I'd say after that, I'm sure a lot of people really started going into the MAD, the Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and organizations like that. I talked to that lady a few times over the past year. She's super nice, but yeah, I just can't imagine the choices people used to make years ago with regards to that.
Right, and that's kind of the reason I speak the way I do. I actually volunteer with Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and they're a good organization, but they get mad at me because of how I speak sometimes. You know, and I get how everyone speaks and what they do, you know, mad. But I go in to change a heart, to change a mindset, not just to tell my story. You know, if you speak so harshly, you're going to turn people away from you. They're going to stay in their lifestyle. So when I speak, you know, I share how I grew up. Then I lead into the bus crash. And most people that use drink, drugs, and alcohol use it to cope with something in life.
Yeah.
So I try to touch their heart before I really get at them about, you know, hey, we can't do these things anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not going to browbeat somebody into doing something different. You have to convince them. It's not selling. It's not telling. It's selling.
Right.
If you can sell on somebody what it is you're trying to convince them of, they're going to more apt to do it.
Right.
But you posted something the other day. It kind of led me to believe that you kind of started heading down the wrong path because of some of your PTSD.
Yes.
That 20 years, I mean, was you experiencing a lot with alcohol and things like that? I don't know. I just saw your post and I thought, you know, I never really thought about, you know, did he ever drink after that and things like that?
Yes. From the time I was 16 to 33 years old, I was a hot mess because, one, the family life I grew up in, no one ever had the tools to ask me if I was okay. So to cope with myself, you know, I started drinking, hanging out, you know, doing all of the wrong things, and just stayed that way until I was 33. Married my high school sweetheart, and we were back and forth, married, divorced, and remarried, but she stuck by my side. But she got sick in 2003, and that's kind of what made me change my life around. But yes, from the time of 15 to 33, trying to understand all the things that, and we didn't talk about PTSD. We didn't even know what it was.
I'm not sure anybody thought about it.
No one knew.
We got to toughen up. You'll be all right.
That's exactly
is the speech you got.
Yes. And then to be truthful, being from a small town, after we all got back, like I said, we had a small settlement. So all the kids from the Carrollton crash, we had nice cars, you know, and so everyone kind of blocked what we went through out. They just seen the outward appearance. So we just moved on in life and blocked everything out. So behind the scenes, a lot of us just dealt with a lot of harsh PTSD. And so we used drugs and alcohol to cope.
Yeah, that's just horrible. Like I said, so many things we know now, and we're still learning about all kinds of stuff. But compared to what we knew then, you know, it was just the 80s was crazy. It was a free-for-all. But do you still keep up with many of the kids do you still stay in touch with them?
Yes, there's probably about 10 that still live around the area. Then we have a private Facebook page that we put together on our 25th year anniversary when our documentary came out, Impact After the Crash. Out of 40 survivors, there's probably 32 on it. Still to this day, none of them really talk on it, but we all read each other's posts. And like I said, but we kind of keep in touch a little bit.
I would imagine, I just, you know, obviously it's not, but I could see y'all getting together on a regular basis just to kind of lean on each other a little bit.
Yeah, we've gotten together. It really started. It's crazy. I don't know if you know survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
That floated around us for years.
Yeah.
So we didn't talk to each other. We didn't really get together until around about our 25th anniversary of the bus crash. And since then, we've gotten together probably about 3 times. But we all started talking about things. The night of our documentary, a lot of us sat around and talked for the first time. And that opened up a lot of healing. So that's why we created the Facebook page. And to this day, we all support each other, but just they don't really talk about it a lot. So.
Are most of them leading pretty good lives, or did they go off the wrong path too?
We have 1 or 2 that still struggle, but for the most part, we all have got families, you know, kids, and we're living a pretty good life.
So you all didn't really know each other before this, because you said you didn't even go to the church. You were just along with a friend that went. So you probably didn't even know half the people on the bus.
Right. I mean, being from small town Radcliffe, you know, you've seen everybody's faces, but I didn't really know any of them. Like I said, I played sports with them. I grew up playing soccer, but didn't go to the church, so I wasn't real close with a lot of them. I probably, as far as being close, it was probably about 6 people I really were close with.
Yeah. Well, I just can't imagine the thoughts and the things that you have. I mean, did you have some nightmares and stuff, I guess, right after all that? I mean, you were pretty young. So.
Yes. Like I said, I blocked a lot. I don't know how I did it. Honestly, I believe because of how I grew up. You know, like I said, my home was just broken and it was just crazy. But I learned to block my memories. I didn't really start dealing with nightmares and stuff until I was around about 19 and didn't understand where it came from. And it just kind of progressed through the years. To this day, I'm 49. I still, every once in a while, I'll have a nightmare, I have a dream, or my PTSD started showing up like 7 years ago. I'm like, where does that come from? But it's crazy because most of us are going through the same thing at the same time because we blocked it out when we were younger. As we get older, it's starting to come out. So I have a lot of triggers now. I went to Thunder over Louisville for the first time probably about 3 years ago. I freaked out and didn't know what happened to me. And so
because of the sounds and
the sounds, I used to go when I was younger and it didn't bother me, but we went one time about 3 years ago and we were right under the bridge and right towards the end when it got dark. I don't like crowds too much. It's crazy. Unless I got to be in control. As part of PTSD, you have to be in control. So we were under the bridge. It got dark. So I kind of took a walk and come back, and toward the end of the show, I was crying and everything else and shaking, and my family had never seen that in me. If it wasn't for my daughter, she was 12 at the time, she grabbed my hand and she's like, "What is wrong?" And we actually had gotten a room downtown, so we walked back, and I locked myself in the bathroom for 2 hours until I could explain to them what happened to me. So, but so it's all still there. It's just a matter of how you deal with it.
You know, many years ago, my grandfather was in World War II, and many years ago, before he died, I used to like to sit and listen to him, but he wouldn't talk about anything in the war until he had been drinking pretty heavily, and then he would sit there and cry. Yeah. And the stories that he would tell were just unbelievable. Right. So I don't think anybody, and it's more and more these days, but PTSD is real.
Yes.
Especially in such a traumatic experience.
One of my passions is I also speak on the military base to the Wounded Warriors Transition Unit, and telling men it's okay to feel your feelings. You know, it's one of the things our society has a problem with. You know, we hide our feelings, and that turns into drugs and alcohol. So I'm known. I'm a sensitive person. I will cry in a minute. If I'm hurting, I'm gonna cry.
Yeah, Kelly laughs at me all the time. What are you tearing up about now?
Yeah. That's I'd seen one of your posts a while back, and he's very passionate.
Yeah.
So
he's a big softy.
Yes. And that's what it's about. But yeah, like I tell my girls, I have 3 girls, 28, 24, and I got a 14-year-old. You know, I didn't want to pass my hurts and my things on to them. So I had to learn to heal.
Yeah.
You know, by them watching me, when they go through stuff, they're going to understand it.
Well, I didn't obviously wasn't there. And in the 80s, there was only 4 TV stations. I know you have a hard time realizing that there wasn't cable, but there was 4 channels, no internet, but so many people knew about it. But you know, my kids, my oldest is 17. When they were born, when they got to kindergarten, they were going to take them on a bus trip on a school
field trip.
Field trip, yeah. So she keeps me straight. So they were going to take them on a field trip, and I'll be honest, I kind of had a panic attack because I wasn't there, but I remember seeing that school bus, and I thought, I'm letting my kid. Somebody else is driving this bus. I have no idea who they are, and I just remember seeing the scenes of what happened to you all, and I kind of had a panic attack. For
I can imagine.
Yeah, for them being on a bus. But with that said, a lot of changes have come because of that. So, you mentioned one with the strobe light. A lot of interstates, even if I'm sober, are hard to decide sometimes which one, like right over by Crittenden Drive when we were coming home from the fair. There's one left turn that goes to 65, and there's another one that takes you on. So but they're not marked real well.
Right.
Has anything changed with signage on roads or bus safety or anything like that?
As far as signs on the roads, I don't know too much about, but not real. As far as what I can tell, no. But buses have. I actually help teach bus safety in Hardin County. You know, the bus I take it to different schools, and I show the difference between an old bus and a new bus. But buses have 9 exits now because of our crash. You have higher seats because of impact. You know, you go against the seat. That's not flammable. A lot of people don't know the material in the old buses are very flammable. So they changed that. The aisles are wider. So it's diesel instead of gas.
Is diesel not as flammable?
Diesel is not flammable at all. It's not. It takes a lot for diesel to go up.
Okay.
So you have strobe light, and you have what's the thing under the floor? There's just so many things. Every aspect of a bus now has changed because of where we're at. I don't know if a lot of people don't know the black lines that go along the side of the bus. That's for firefighters if the bus has a bad crash.
That's the seat, right? Or something?
Yes, it's the line where the seat starts in case they got to cut into the bus.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I just learned that.
A lot of people don't know these things, but our crash, like I said, it caused a lot of change.
Wow.
Well, like I seen something the other day, so, back to school last week and all that stuff was starting. Someone made a post about JCPS and how they had kids sitting 3 to a seat, standing in the aisle.
Right.
I mean, and parents were furious because, I feel like that's not safe.
Yeah, JCPS is a whole nother discussion.
Yeah.
It is.
But I'm just like, man.
I'm a bus driver, trust me.
Yeah. So do you drive for JCPS?
No, I drive in Hardin County.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because of all the speaking I do. Everyone knows who I am, so I got different districts. Will you come drive for us? Nope. I'm staying in little old Radcliffe.
Yeah, well, it's unfortunate, but I guess it's good that they made some changes to these buses because, I don't remember if I asked you that day at my cousin's, but there's a reason why there's no seatbelts on buses.
I just had a discussion about this.
And I think I asked you that, and you told me why.
There should be no seatbelts on a bus.
Yeah.
And I get the argument, but I get frustrated because I'm like, do y'all understand what I went through as a kid? The easiest thing that you think to do becomes harder for a kid in a panic. Everyone says, how come we didn't get out of our windows on that bus? Because you just push the thing, the top latches, and you roll it down. You can't do this in a panic. You put a seatbelt on a bus. I imagine like I say, I drive elementary school. If something happens and I got to be responsible for say the bus driver's out, those kids, they're going to panic. They're going to fidget with those seatbelts. It's going to take too long to get off.
Yeah.
So the only time you need a seatbelt, which is rarely, and I'll tell people I wish they would look it up, study it, is a rollover. But that rarely happens. I mean, really, it rarely happens versus if you look, we have crashes every day.
Well, to be honest, your bus never would have caught on fire if the gas tank wasn't busted.
Right.
And obviously buses are tanks. If they're in a wreck, you're probably going to get banged up a little bit.
Right.
Unless something like happened to you all, there's probably not going to be a lot of serious injury.
Right.
And but yeah, I've heard people on social media is good, plus it's the devil. I've seen people complaining about some of that stuff. But your seatbelt discussion really opened my eyes and made me think but you talked about all the exits. I'm just curious, when you get on a plane, they talk about how to open the door and all that stuff. I wonder how many kids, we ought to do a survey, how many kids actually know how to open the emergency exits?
This is something I'm actually trying to change a little more in our county. We do bus evacuations, but bus safety is not designed because of time to show every kid to open the door. They need to be hands-on to me, but we'll tell them, and that's about it.
But the back door is a no-brainer, I think. When I was a kid, it had a big latch on it. But the windows, I mean, who would know how to open those safely?
Honestly, they're because I know kids. It's the red latch. You push it up and it pops open. But again, unless you actually show them, let them do it in a panic, you just never know.
Yeah.
So I believe bus safety could be a little better. So that's why I do what I do.
Yeah, you almost have to have that. My alarm went off one night at my house at 3 a.m. And that thing was so loud, I couldn't think what I was doing.
Right.
I knew I had to turn the code off, but I couldn't. It was so loud, I couldn't think about and then I was trying to type the code. And so I can't imagine in a life and death situation and being that panicked over something. It takes a Navy SEAL to be calm, cool, and collective to make sure that they're going to do the right thing.
I always tell people, because I get asked all kinds of questions, how come it took so long to get off or get out the windows,
you don't know.
Panic. And I'm like, if you could just close your eyes and picture yourself being, and this is why I really love that I have my bus. Mm-hmm. If you could close your eyes and picture this thing on fire, pitch black, you can't see, and you're smelling all this hot soot and everything, and then you have to try to stay calm and try to get off of this thing, and then it's crowded and you can't go anywhere. No one is going to stay calm. And so I always tell people, I said, unless you were there, try to pay attention to what I'm saying and just understand.
Well, everybody bases things off the perfect storm.
Right.
And, perfect storm, bus crash, no smoke, no fire. Everybody's calm. Everybody, all right, sit over there. You're going to be okay. Doesn't happen that way.
Right.
And it's pure panic. And at first, probably your first reaction is this real? Is this really happening?
Right.
Am I waking? Am I sleeping or something?
I always tell people when I go out and speak, I'll ask kids, who's the first person you scream for? And they say, Mommy. I say, imagine hearing that 10 times louder in your head.
About 60-something kids.
Yes, I said that's what's ingrained in us because you're hurt, you're panicking, so every kid's screaming for their mom. I said, so that's just a scenario we were in. So,
yeah. Well, again, I watch your posts, and I can tell you're of faith. I mean, did that shake you? Obviously, for probably 20 years, you were on a different path, but. I mean, I guess you really believe that something that like this happened for a reason, obviously, or
this is the way I say it when I go, because I get asked all the time because I became a Christian when I was 33, and I don't know everything. What I do say is I know I'm going to heaven, but when I die, me and God are gonna sit and talk some more about this. But what I believe in now is why I speak so much is what God has showed me is turning every tragedy in your life, turn it for a purpose. I got my life scripture is on my arm. All things work for the good for those who love Christ Jesus, but no one reads the end of that. Called according to his purpose. And I really believe once I found faith, he'll give you a purpose in the worst thing in your life. And that's the only thing that's happened to me. I have found a purpose. I always tell my girls, I have a choice. I got a right to be messed up because of everything I went through. I could sit at home and do nothing. I could drink, just be an average person. Or I could choose to walk over on the right side and show everyone you don't have to live this way. I choose to live a purposeful life. I choose to try to leave a legacy, especially after having my kids. I just don't believe in sitting around doing nothing and just being messed up. I got my days too. I got days I don't want to talk to nobody.
Yeah.
But I choose to learn to fight back out of it. Mm-hmm. I just told my daughter yesterday, I got a story I always tell them. You ever see back in the day, especially black people, they would go to a funeral, put all black on, and they all black veil. I said, but after they leave the funeral, they raise the black veil and they move on in life. Act like no one died.
Yeah.
So when my girls call me with a problem, I say, okay, put your veil on for a moment. I'll listen to you, but take it off.
Yeah.
And move on. And, I try my best to live my life through that. I didn't plan on becoming a public speaker. I didn't plan on doing any of this. The reward in this is when I have a child or an adult comes up and says, Mr. Higgins, you changed my life. I went and spoke in Grant County about 2 months ago. And forgive me, I might tear up on this because I hadn't went out over a year because of COVID. So I was a little leery in taking my bus out, and I go and spoke in the middle school, and the young man comes up and he says, how did you learn to forgive? And I just shared with him, he said, I needed to hear that because he had just gotten out the hospital from trying to commit suicide, took his pawpaw's gun and tried to shoot himself. And that happened twice to me in that week. And the reward is showing these kids that, yes, you'll go through stuff when you're young, but if they see this, I say I'm a 49, 15-year-old, they see me come out of everything. There's hope for them too.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, and it's just hard to get through to them sometimes.
Yes.
Because they see such despair and no hope. But what you've seen and dealt with, I would imagine they would look up and listen to you.
Yes, I have like I said, it's a gift of being able to understand where a teenager goes through.
Yeah,
that's where I always try to get at them. Paul in the Bible says, become all things to all people. When I'm talking to a teenager, I'm a teenager. Mm-hmm. When I'm talking to an adult, I'm an adult. But you have to learn, this is what's wrong with our world today. We're not meeting everyone where they're at.
Yeah.
And, if we don't learn to reach these kids, how are they going to grow up and be, good people? How are they going to grow up and learn to overcome what they go through? Yeah. So I don't ever want to see anyone go through the stuff that we went through as kids. I don't want to see people go through that battle. I always, because everyone meets me and says, Quentin, you got it together. No, you have no idea how long it took me to get here. And the stuff that's still in Quentin's head and his heart. I said, I just know my battle.
Yeah.
So,
but you've seen, I mean, my mom died. And I've got some visions of her that I can't get out of my head. And I've probably got some PTSD. But like you said, my life mission was not to be a speaker, to talk about stuff, right, to try and convince people that we've got a problem in this country. I'd just soon go on with my life and never talk to anybody. Did it feel like it forced you out of your comfort zone? Because this is not something I'm comfortable doing, to be honest.
Yes, I'm way out of my comfort zone, believe it or not. But like I said, I've learned to enjoy it, and I learned to.
But you're having an impact, so I'm sure you think about that.
Yes, like I said, I'd rather go home and sit in my chair.
Yeah,
like I said, I got people see my posts. I'm in the gym about every morning. But I said I got a choice to, when I leave the bus garage, to turn right and go to the gym, or turn left and go to sit in my chair. Yeah. Because I'm off for 3 hours during the day, so I got time to do nothing. I said, but I go to the gym about every day. Someone calls me to speak, I go. Yeah. If my bus is running, or I feel like I can drive it, if they want to see the bus, Quentin's going. Yeah. So it's about being obedient.
But when you get there, you get a feeling of,
yes,
because I'm the same way. We had a big event, and I was just down. I get down, and I really didn't want to do it. And I'm just like, man, I just don't want to do this today. I don't want to do this today. Then when I get there, I get energized.
Right.
It's just weird because I'd rather sit at home, like you said. Two of my favorite shows is Andy Griffith and Sanford and Son.
There you go.
And I would just rather sit in my chair and watch those old episodes. And but we've kind of put ourselves in a position where we have to get up.
Yes.
But again, when I get there, I get energy. I get ready to roll, and it's fun. But just getting there is tough.
It is. I tell people I get to the bus garage every morning about 5:30. My bus route doesn't start till 6:30. Said, why do you do that? Sometimes it takes me a minute to prepare myself to get on my route.
Yeah.
The white bus that I drive around, sometimes people don't see when I'm pacing outside of it because it takes me a minute to get on it.
Yeah.
People don't see me when I'm driving it, and I got music. I can't stand the way it sounds, so I put music in my ear. Or I might be crying and talking to the pictures. I said, but once I get to where I'm going, I find my purpose and I get energized and I do what I got to do. That's what I'm called to do. So
it's amazing what you've done, given the tragedy that you see. So you started an organization, Voice for Change.
Yes.
So do people go there and sign up and have you come? How many times do you go speak at schools a year?
Before COVID hit, the week before COVID hit, I was set to go out to 13 places in 1 month.
Wow.
So from year to year, it just varies, but I go out a whole lot right before prom because a lot of schools reach out to me to speak in project graduations or just they do events giving kids awareness not to drink and party and things like that. So it's just, I go out quite a bit. It's just any given time.
I would imagine you probably had an impact on schools and how they handle homecomings and proms and stuff like that. Again, in the 80s, it was a free-for-all. And I know where my kids were going to go to high school, they do breathalyzers and stuff like that on the kids before they come in and leave just to make sure they're not doing anything on property. So I don't know if you had any impact on that, you think, but it's pretty incredible. So you got a lot of things booked towards the end of the year. Or are you going to slow up a little bit because
the way it's worked so far? Like I said, my daughter's the one. She said, "Daddy, you need a webpage." People we don't use it quite a bit, but people see my posts from social media, or I'll post all my events. I got 2 pages, my personal page, Quiton Higgins. Then my daughter was like, "You just need a page for your bus."
Yeah.
So I got a bus called or a page called Voice for Change, where I just post my bus and people see it. And
a Facebook page?
Yeah, I got a Facebook page called Voice for Change, and people see it and they reach out to me. So it's not so much through the website; it's just really about word of mouth.
Yeah.
But I go out constantly. I'm going to Tell City next week on the 18th, and I speak. These people found me at a Mad March several years ago. And they reached out to me and said, "Would you come to our DUI impact panel?" At first, I told them no, because 2-hour drive, time difference. I got to get off my bus route and drive straight to Tell City, Indiana. Finally, she said, "Well, it's a time change, so you got time." So I go to Tell City every other month, and I speak in a full room of about 30 to 40 people, share my heart for 2 hours.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I'm doing that next week. So it's just any given time, somebody reaches out, I go.
Well, that's amazing. Normally, we wrap up by telling how they can help Shirley's Way, but we're going to give you the floor. How can they help you? If we go to Voice for Change on Facebook, is there a donation button to help you put gas in your bus? How can people help you out?
Yes, you can go to voiceforchange.net or on my Facebook page, or you can just search the website. I'll be honest with you, I don't go to the website so much, so I just know I'll go to my Facebook page, click voiceforchange.net, because there's a link on my Facebook page. And if you want to donate to the cause, to go ahead and donate to me, or just prayers, or reach out to me and let me know, that I'm doing a good thing, and that's about it, really.
Absolutely. I mean, how do you collect enough donations for the year? I'm assuming people pay you when you come to
yes, I
donation,
do.
But I mean, obviously, it's a lot to drive a bus around.
It is. It's.
Do you have any mechanics that donate their time to fix it if something goes wrong?
No, everything I've done is by the seat of my pants. And that's what gets me in trouble with my wife.
Yeah.
We've always been blessed that we get just enough to keep going. Which I don't know if recently someone donated us another bus, so I don't know what I'm gonna do with that yet. So donations help. So because it does take a lot to keep going. Actually, now I don't really take the bus out a lot unless it's for a bigger event, because it does cost, and if it breaks down, it costs a lot to tow it. So I'm trying to actually, it's my daughter. She said, "Daddy, you just can't do everything." So, because I want to go. So sometimes I'll drive, go speak. But if the bus doesn't need to be there, I don't take the bus. So, but yes, if you want to donate to me, just reach out on the page.
So voiceforchange.net.
Yes.
Thanks for coming in today, and we really appreciate it. And we'll get some notes on the podcast to give people info on how they can help out. Thanks again, sir. We appreciate it.
I thank you guys for reaching out to me.
Yep. See ya.